Noah, you did a pretty good job of driving there.
Only one crash. That's pretty good going.
That
That's pretty good going.
That was a rough start.
And that was like exactly an hour too.
Was it? Good.
Yeah, it's perfect. We're right on.
One crash and one death.
Not so bad.
Good job, Noah.
Not so bad.
We're going to queue up some questions here. Viewers at home, if you have your own questions, tweet them at IGN with hashtag Tomb Raider. We will answer those as well. Anyone here in our studio audience, if you have a question, I think, Caleb, they want you to just queue up a line here at the microphone. Anybody? No, are you able to like jump back into any points of the game and to play a little bit more while we answer questions?
Good idea.
Let's see here. I'm going to look online. Does anybody here have any questions for us, for our developers today?
I tried playing a little bit more of the lower section.
Because it starts early.
Are we calling questions yet?
Yeah, we're calling up questions here. We have several queued up from our viewers at home. Steve Vo, one of our viewers, has a question about the soundtrack. He wants to know like what feel were you going for with the soundtrack?
Oh, you should take that.
Yeah.
Play a little bit.
Play a little bit. One of the most important things for us was to score Lara's experience. That I think we wanted to retain some of the epic orchestral feel that we love in Tomb Raider tracks, but we also, like we were doing with the character treatment, we really wanted to sort of have that sense of being there with Lara and feeling what Lara's feeling at the moment. So a lot of what we tried to do with that score was really shed light into the emotional context of the situation for Lara. So when Lara's feeling scared, the music really presents a backdrop to that. And similarly, when Lara's feeling that what we saw at the end of this demo, that sense of success and that victory and that the grand sweeping vistas, that the music's really trying to back that up. So I think the music team did an excellent job really bringing to the forefront the emotional context of our journey.
And if I understand it correctly, the score was actually recorded on sort of maybe not traditional instruments, or at least they were inspired by elements that Lara is dealing with and using to survive. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's super exciting. Like, if you start to, I gave the very high level with audio, but there were some very fun things that we did. We gave themes to different characters, so Roth has a theme, and Lara has a theme, and the scavengers have a theme. But also, the instrumentation itself was a vision for the scavenger personality. So rather than just dealing with the musical notes or the rhythms, we actually wanted the sounds themselves to sound scavengery. So Jason Graves and a sculptor friend were able to construct an instrument that was made specifically for that, bringing to the forefront scavenger type sounds. And I think he did an amazing job sort of eking out any number of sounds, that there's these sort of tense, grating sounds for those claustrophobic moments, and then there's the big kind of banging, dirty metal sounds that when it sort of opens up and things. So to me, it was fun to have that amount of creativity and passion within a group. Like, we see it, that's specific to audio, but you see it with every group where people just go, how can we not only do this good, but really make it something special? And that idea of making an instrument specifically for the game was a blast.
That is pretty special. I believe we have a question from a young man in our audience here.
So this is kind of the origin story for Lara Croft. How much of it is a new character, and how much of it is it completely the same character from all the other Tomb Raider games, and this is the backstory of that character? Or did you kind of do like a Christopher Nolan like reimagining of the character, and this is really her first story?
Well, it started with Noah, and he came to the art department and says, look, we want to create a character that is younger, believable, more believable, a Lara that has all that potential, but hasn't yet manifested that in the real world. So we knew we had a big task ahead of us to make it feel like Lara Croft and yet feel like a young, inexperienced Lara Croft. So the goal was to try to make sure that we were keeping the core attributes of her being a lover of archaeology, someone who has a thirst for knowledge and wants to go out and have an adventure. What we've done to sort of modify her is we tried to make her a little bit more grounded. Her clothes are more that of instead of being an outfit, it feels like something you would buy off the rack. And her personality is a little bit more rich. I mean, you're seeing her in various degrees of emotion, and we really wanted to bring that emotional depth through in her performance, and also gives us an opportunity to start her at one place and then have her end at another. So the idea of a Batman or a James Bond has often been thrown out by us as like saying, you're seeing these characters grow into their potential instead of starting off as like the superhero.
I think the key thing to answer your question, the second part of it, is that we didn't feel completely bound by the first version of Lara in TR1, that we felt that there's attributes obviously she brings with her, but it is that more of a Batman Begins, Christopher Nolan version of the character, where we felt that we didn't have to be one-to-one with sort of her past, that we wanted to be this fresh take with obviously the DNA is coming from the same place.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
Next question.
So in the main menu, I saw that you guys already had the downloadable content option. Like, what are you guys looking for doing? Are you guys going to expand on the story more, or like add in an alternative where it's still on the island, or she gets, like, while she's trying to leave, she gets trapped on another one, or what's going on with that?
I should probably take that.
Yeah, take it.
Well, it's well spotted first and foremost, because you've probably seen something you shouldn't. It's unfortunately something that is difficult to answer because we're not yet released, and I can't really go into too much detail on the downloadable content, other than we have announced that there is downloadable content, so that's no secret. But I really can't give too much more away. We're giving a huge chunk of the game away here. We don't want to give more away right now.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Another question up here? We've got more quick viewers at home. This is,
Hi.
oh yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's just another quick question regarding DLC and all that. I know that you guys are releasing content for when you pre-order from certain retailers like GameStop and whatnot, and I think there might be some other with editions and whatnot. Would there be any plans to release them to the public over time, like they did with some other games? And then also with with the various collector's editions, certain versions have certain exclusivities. Is the same thing with that? Are there going to be any plans to release those ones to the general public as well?
Well, it's another similar question where it's a tough one to answer right now, if I'm honest. I can't really say how the future releases post-game are going to shape up. So it's not something we can get into as much as I'd love to right now. But I think the aim is to try and make as much content available to as many people as possible. So I think that's sort of what we can say right now, because we have a ton of different content with different retailers, as you said, that we'd love to make as available as possible. And we'll have to see how we do that post-release.
Okay, thanks.
That was a bit of a non-answer again.
That's okay.
My apologies.
I'm sure you have to give a lot of non-answers in your line of work. One of our viewers at home, Alone Chief, says, you mentioned quick travel. His question is, so is this an open world game, or is the quick travel system a way to backtrack?
Oh, you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not an open world game. We've structured the game as a set of hubs and missions within and connecting hubs. And the goal there really is to cater to pockets of exploration. But what we find is that some people like to explore very diligently as they go. And you can do that. But at the same time, we find others that sort of feel pulled forward by the story and the urgency of Lara's situation. And we didn't want to feel like you had to find things now if you were ever going to find them. So fast travel is really a way to travel back to areas that you've previously been to and sort of have that freedom to do the exploration when you want to do the exploration and do the critical path narrative when you want to progress that.
I see. I think we have another question here.
In terms of realism, in past games we've seen everything from giant octopus to T-Rexes. So with the enemies, about how realistic are you trying to be?
Ooh, I want to take this a little bit because we find ourselves getting trapped a little bit in the concept of grounding that we've really tried so hard to achieve. We consider that very different than realism, that whether it's sort of important video game conceits, like Lara can actually carry all of her two-handed weapons with her at once. That's something that isn't fictionally very true, but it was an important concession for us to allow the most fun gameplay experience that we could. And I find that whenever possible, we're catering to grounding first over realism. And the goal there is to really just feel like what you're playing is credible. You can believe it. But having said that, once we get you there, once you buy into this Lara and this island and this experience, the goal is to take you to amazing places, places you couldn't ever go. And if you take the time to sort of read some of the journals that we've shown in this first few hours, it's already hinting at the rich history and the mythology of this island. And what's exciting to me is, as much as we focus on survival as a core theme throughout this, that Lara's a Tomb Raider, and in addition to really growing as a survivor, she grows as a Tomb Raider, and as a hero, she becomes uniquely capable of unraveling the mysteries of this island. So without getting into what specific things we'll find, the idea is to just really give you an experience that you can believe in, but that really is an amazing, fantastic adventure, right?
Okay.
Good question. Do we have another question here? You step right up.
Hi, I want to say, like, fantastic game.
Oh, thanks.
I'm a big fan from the old Tomb Raiders. I was just wondering if there's dual pistols.
Spoilers,
all the
left and
questions
right.
we can't answer.
Well, again, we really don't want, it's difficult to talk about the game without sort of stepping into spoiler space. But what is important to us is this is a character that people know and love, and there's aspects of that character that what's fun about an origin story is seeing them stepping into those shoes of that character. So without speaking to any specific aspects of Lara as a Tomb Raider, along the way, you have those moments where you're like, yes, Lara is becoming Lara. And so as a franchise, we celebrate Lara's history, and it's exciting to see her step into those shoes, or those boots, as the case may be.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Young lady like you,
Next question.
I was wondering what type of research had to be done in order to get the amount of accuracy, both for Lara as she's, developing all these techniques, the climbing, the jumping, the athleticism that's involved. What type of research did you guys have to do for that?
Can we take this one?
You made Brian jump off cliff.
Yeah. No, I would say what's
Climbs Axel's really,
I
really well.
do, yeah. So one of the things that we did, our animation team led by Brandon Fernandez is industry best. I mean, they're just stellar group of animators, but they're a study of motion. So what they do more often than not is you'll see them grab the video camera and film themselves doing these moves. So there is hours upon hours of wonderful blooper reel of our team doing ridiculous things. And our executive producer, we have a fantastic piece of footage I hope we can release at some point that showcases the commitment our team goes through to make sure our motion is not only accurate, but it has a certain personality to it. The Lara you see on the screen is an amalgam of two things. We have full performance capture from Camilla on the cinematics, so we want to make sure those feel believable. But when it comes to the gameplay itself, all of that is mostly keyframed. And at the end of the project, we started introducing a little bit more motion capture into that. But our goal always is to try to make sure she feels as real and believable as possible. And we started first with just making sure we understood her character. So I think we spent most of our time just on her run cycle. Once we knew her idols and her run cycles, then we started branching out and doing everything else. Jumping, yeah. So the jump, the run, those fundamental just ground moves, we probably spent more time on those than any other move we had in the game.
Yeah, that's the meat and potatoes, right? That's what you're going to be doing so much of the game. So a huge amount of time is spent there. And I think it's a difficult balance because you don't want to sacrifice realism over playability. And I think the animation team and the design team's done a great job of sort of marrying the two closely together, where it really feels fun on the sticks to play, and it's convincing to watch as well at the same time. And that's a really difficult balancing act because the two quite often oppose each other. That what is believable and realistic isn't necessarily fun to play, and pure fun isn't necessarily fitting for this world and this character. So I hope you guys see it, that it feels like a really good marriage of animation and playability in this particular game, especially when it comes to controversial.
Yeah, and even on the fiction side, I mean, I think we really try to do research to understand that point of departure. So whether it's the moves or just a survival situation, or we really try to immerse ourselves in the real world examples of that. But as Daryl pointed out, what's important is knowing when to really cater to the gameplay as well. So Lara's climbing more quickly than a green climber might climb. But having said that, we wanted fun climbing. We wanted that action traversal type experience. And in Lara's case, she did also spend a bit of time in her youth adventuring with her father and Roth sort of mentoring her. So she did have a good head start. But we wanted to take that point of departure and make sure that at all times it was delivered in a fun way, and that the fiction was starting with that point of departure. But we take creative liberties where we need to make the best experience that we can.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question. Next, please.
A lot has been made of Camilla Luddington's performance, and from what I've seen, it's on a totally different emotional level. My question is, with the increased usage of motion capture in video games, how has achieving that emotional tone, both in the cinematics and in the gameplay, changed from a gameplay design perspective? Is there someone who's there working with her like a director would an actor on set? How much creative say does Camilla have in the performance? How does that process work?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was really valuable for us in our the primary cinematics, one of the things that's interesting is we have motion capture, but we also have animated scenes, and we capture audio on the motion capture set, but we also bring her back into the booth. But one of the things that's most exciting is when we get the full performance capture and we get all the actors working together. We're capturing the camera at the time, and what that does allow them to do is to understand the context and act off of each other a bit. That rather than everybody just kind of in a booth reading the lines that they're told to read, we get them on the stage, we actually build an approximation of the situation. So if it's a boat, we have a fake boat that they're sitting on with steering wheels, and it's all movie set type scenario. But it allows them to really feel like they're in the moment and interact with the physical aspects of the environment and also interact with each other. So it is something where by giving them that context rather than just the lines, it allows them to bring something to the table. And Camilla was tremendous with that, but really all of the actors played off of each other to sort of bring the scenes to life. And then in the game itself, a lot of those are animated by hand, so setting up a lot of the gameplay situations, it's not necessarily worth getting all the actors in the studio just to segue from one situation to the other. But once we have that animation, it's not enough to stop there. That we record that, and whenever possible, we even give that context. We had Camilla in for a little while playing through the game with us. So if there was situations where we didn't necessarily capture it on set, she could see it in the game, understand it, and then sort of play off of that. So it's a process where the more we can give them room to be actors, the better a performance we get.
Next question.
Hi. One of the things I remember early on was a release of Lara in her new form, and we all know Laura's traditional form. So I was just wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about the engineering behind the new physical build of Lara.
He asked it without asking it.
I know. So there was a lot of iteration that went into crafting a new look for Lara. Once again, we started with who she was as a person. You don't just start with a visual wrapper, you start with that core of a personality. From there, we just did traditional, what you'd expect you do. You do concept art. So we did a series of images that we felt best embodied the character that we were trying to bring forward. But as far as, we knew believability being the most important thing, we wanted to have a familiarity, yet someone that was, that you would look at and go, I think I know her. She seems familiar to me, but she's not. We just didn't want to give her that classic superhero or Amazonian kind of form, right? She needed to feel like someone that you could relate to, someone that was grounded. And then her power comes not from the way she is physically, but what she does. And then once again, I talked a little bit about her clothes. We wanted to make sure her clothes felt as real as they could. They weren't. It wasn't really uniform. It's something that you could just imagine, someone on an expedition like this with these kind of boots, cargo pants, and dual tanks. So those are the things that we thought about. But we also wanted to retain some things. So you've got the ponytail, but the basic triangle of her face is very similar. There's a signature shape to her lips. All those things we've retained, but in a more realistic context, something that feels like a real person.
Yeah, Brian makes it sound easy over here, but it was a tough process. I mean, you remember you were heading it up, and I think it's, as Brian said, I think one of the things we really wanted to do is we still retain the DNA of Lara of old, but make it feel like it's a more relevant version for this story we're trying to tell here, and the character that she represents today. And I would say that there was, I don't know how many 100 iterations.
A lot of rounds.
A lot of rounds, and a lot of just nitpicking and pulling every point, because the personality of a person, especially when you look at their face, you make snap judgments. So there was a millimeters difference on everything from the shape of her face to her nose to her mouth, her eye shape. And I remember seeing, we go into a room, a number of us, sitting here, and the team as well, going into rooms and seeing, I don't know, 20 or 30 versions of Lara lined up, and it's like, this is the version where she's got bigger nostrils. This is the version where her eyebrows are arched. And this is the version where she's got red lipstick on. It was each one was different, and we honed it and sculpted it and fine-tuned it down to the point where we all sat there and said, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
So it was a long process, though, huh?
Yeah. But it was an important one. I think if we hadn't spent that time, I don't think we would have found the character that we have on the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, we even had scans as a part of our process to get some details. So, I mean, it went through a lot of different processes to try to get to the end product, but I'm so happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah, and there was many points where it felt like that we found the one, and then a few months would go by, we'd look back at what we'd done, and we're like, actually, it's not really quite right. Let's do this again. And people start pulling their hair out, and
I'll say one other thing that's important is VisualWorks, our partner in Japan that did our trailer, actually was very instrumental. As we were locking down our character in-house, they were doing the trailer, and we influenced each other too. So that was another great
it was a
tool.
collaboration. Yeah,
there was a lot of collaboration going on at that time.
Great question.
Great question. Thank you.
Were there any big technical hurdles that you had to get past to get to this? Like any ones that would really stand out?
Yeah, I'd say that there was a ton. I mean, the engine's been rebuilt for this game because we were doing so many new things. So everything from the animation system is completely new in this game. So that meant that none of what we'd done in previous Tomb Raider games could really carry across, because it had to be built from the ground up. With the new animation system and with the control schemes that we were looking to put in, and sort of the flexibility that we wanted on the sticks. As you can see from seeing some of the combat here, combat, AI, aiming, all of that was built from the ground up, and really new technology that we put in, from the AI pathing to the aiming, shooting, to the weapon, the gunplay, Lara's moves. The cover system is obviously something I think we feel very proud of. I mean, it's a fluid cover system. It's something that we don't see in every game. And we prototyped that and spent a long time iterating with, at the time, when we start going through this and see it for the first time, there's a lot of early prototypes that make you feel like it's not going to work out. And through perseverance and really honing the engine, I think we've got something that's very unique there too. From a cinematics workflow standpoint, no at all to that. A lot of new techniques there. From a technical standpoint, I think the hubs were the big undertaking. Definitely it's something that we would not have been able to do in the past. I mean, some of the hubs, we've seen one here. There's multiple hubs in the game, and by the time you get to the end, they really are, they're
massive.
Huge, right? They are huge hubs to go and explore, and they're awesome to look at. And there's no way we would have been able to do that in the past without investing very heavily in the technology. So I would say they're some of the biggest challenges that we've faced, and some of those I think have been tough to pull off. I think the workflows, that's another.
Horizon is huge.
Yeah, we actually invested a lot in workflows so people could iterate much more quickly on screen. And that's so important when you're trying to find quality, to actually get something on screen and try it and sort of fail and try it again and fail and try it again, because games don't, you see this end product, and what you don't see is the thousands and thousands of iterations that it takes to actually get there. So one of the things we did was invest very heavily in the tool set to allow designers and artists to work very, very quickly. And we have almost a real-time link to the game where they can actually edit something in their native software, whether it's the level editor or 3D package, and you can see that update and refresh in the game on the screen and play it straight away. And I think that's another key to the success of this game, is allowing for tons of iteration, experimentation, trying things, throwing it away, and trying it again until we actually got it right. So there was a ton of technical work that we put into this game in the early part of the project that allowed the team to really set up and achieve the results we see on screen. Yeah. Anything else you'd throw in?
I would just say that investment in tools. I would say as a developer, we couldn't make this game without the new tool set. So big props to our programming team, because we own our technology. I mean, what you see there's no off the store package for this. This is something we authored at Crystal. So they've just done an amazing job giving the artists and designers the tools to be successful. I mean, the amount of programmers we have on this team are a lot less because they gave us these tools, and that was very, very important to us.
Yeah, great question.
Thanks.
I think we got time for one more question here. This comes from Jameson KB, who asks, what was the most important thing from previous Tomb Raider games that you wanted to preserve?
Wow. Tough question.
For me, I wanted to get back the feeling I had the first time I played Tomb Raider, and I'll never forget it. It's what opened me up to the idea of wanting to. It sort of got me into a direction saying I want to make games like that for the rest of my career. So I wanted it to be inspirational. I wanted it to feel fresh. I wanted it to feel like a Tomb Raider game. These are my selfish things I wanted to do, but I also wanted to, in order to get that feeling again, we had to change some stuff. So it's sort of jumping off that cliff and saying, what can we retain? What are we retaining, and what can we change and still make it feel like a Tomb Raider game? So that was my big goal. Was like, how do we make it feel like that first time you played a Tomb Raider game? That was my hope.
Anything you'd add?
Excuse me, a bit of a cough, but I think for me, I think the original Tomb Raider was such a revelation in terms of its character, the character on screen, and the world that you're exploring. They really pushed the boundary with that original one in a way that we'd not seen before. And I think that's one of the things that we really wanted to get back to, was pushing the boundaries of what you could do with characters in video games, because that really did provide the link back to the original. And some of the things that we've done here, I think, really have taken great steps forward for the Tomb Raider franchise. But in general, I think we've tried to push that in this game, beyond just it being a Tomb Raider game. I think in video games as a whole, that sense of developing a character, that sense of wonder of seeing not only her develop, but also the spaces you go through and exploring and revealing these new spaces that you get to experience as this Tomb Raider. I think that sense of just pushing the envelope with the character is really the thing that we talked about a lot actually at the beginning of what really made Tomb Raider special, and we wanted to take that and push it forward. Noah?
Yeah, I mean, these guys covered it for the most part. I think one of the things that was most important as we put a focus on the narrative and Lara's progression and character arc was to still celebrate choice and exploration and discovery. So I think the idea of tombs and finding something that you're pretty sure that most people playing the game didn't find, that was something that was absolutely important for us to hold on to, and in fact we really designed the game around a structure that would allow people to both pursue the high action or gripping adventure, but really also get lost and wander around a place that feels like no one's ever been there, and Lara's finding stuff that no one's ever found, and I guess that sense of discovery is something that we really wanted to hold on to from the original games.
Yeah, sense of wonder.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah.
The original Tomb Raider was the game I bought with my PlayStation.
Yeah, me too.
That's great. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to show us your game today. It's looking really fantastic. Tomb Raider is out on March 5th. But this is just the start of Tomb Raider week for us here at IGN. We have individual Tomb Raider previews going up every day this week. So tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll have a rerun theater of the new VGA trailer, the latest Tomb Raider trailer. We'll be going through frame by frame, seeing how many details we can pull out. Wednesday, we have the Tombs of Tomb Raider. We'll show you a little bit more about what the tombs are like in the game, a little bit more of the secret tombs, the challenge tombs. Thursday is upgrading Lara Croft. We'll show you even more about upgrading her skills and equipment. And then Friday, we have another trailer that gives you a very high-level overview of all the different mechanics in the game. So stay tuned for that. Thank you very much for our live studio audience for joining us here today.
Thank you.
You guys have been awesome. Thank you everyone for tuning in at home. This has been IGN's live stream of Tomb Raider, and we'll see you all very soon.